Hello, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of The Director's Cut, brought to you by the Directors Guild of America, featuring today's top directors sharing behind-the-scenes stories of their latest films and insights into the craft of directing. Please take a second to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. In this episode, Destin Daniel Cretton takes us behind the scenes of his new drama, Just Mercy. Based on a true story, the film follows young lawyer Bryan Stevenson's efforts to overturn the murder conviction of Walter McMillian, who was sentenced to die for the murder of an 18-year-old girl, despite ample evidence proving his innocence. In addition to Just Mercy, Mr. Cretton's directorial credits include the feature films The Glass Castle, Short Term 12, and I'm Not a Hipster, the documentaries Drakmar, A Vassal's Journey and Born Without Arms, and the television series Scenes for Minors. Following a recent screening of the film at the DGA Theater in Los Angeles, Mr. Cretton spoke with director Anna Boden about filming Just Mercy. Listen on for their spoiler-filled conversation.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Destin, for making such an awesome movie. I just want to start by saying, it's beautiful. I loved it so much. And I'm just really pleased to be here to talk to you about it.
Little known fact, Anna was my mentor during the writing of Short Term 12, my second feature, when I was at a lab out in the Hamptons.
That's true. And I was like, I read the script and I was like, you don't need me. And then I saw the movie. It was like just a couple of years later, right? That the film came out. And it's, blew me away, as did this one. Do you just want to start by talking a little bit about kind of how you came, when and how you came to the story, or how it came to you, or?
The book Just Mercy came to me through our producer Gil Netter, and I read it actually at a coffee shop here in LA called the Bourgeois Pig, and I stayed there way too long because I couldn't put it down, and it made me cry, it made me laugh, and by the end of it, I honestly was expecting to feel kind of depressed about the world, but by the end of it, I felt so connected and inspired, and it's just Bryan Stevenson's voice somehow takes you into the darkness of humanity, but simultaneously opens your eyes to the beauty of humans and what they can do for each other, and it was something that I just felt like I would be very honored to be a part of.
And was it his voice primarily that drew you to it, or was there another character or the world? What was it?
It is Bryan's voice and the lens that he sees the world through is a very special. He just has a very special vision for human beings. And it's my favorite. My favorite types of stories are the ones that start with characters who you think you get, and then as the layers peel off, you start to realize how complicated they are, and that's really what Bryan's entire job is. He's a storyteller in a courtroom, and he starts with somebody who has the crimes, and he starts with the stereotype and the mugshot and the one line of what they did. But his job in that courtroom is to reveal to the judge or the jury the full backstory of this person, what their childhood was like, what specific circumstances they were in that got them into this crime, or sometimes didn't get them into that crime because they're completely innocent. But either way, he's such a gracious man that, I mean, when I met him, I could feel that he just has no judgment about him. He's constantly looking at humans kind of as a whole.
And when was that? When was the first time you read the book? Or
I don't know. It was the year that it came out. I'm not sure.
A few years ago?
Yeah, it was. Do we know? 2014. Mm-hmm. And it was shortly after that I met Bryan. He was on a book tour out here in LA, and when I met him, it felt like I was going to meet a hero of mine, and he surprisingly had seen Short Term 12 and was talking to me about the way that those characters developed throughout the movie and why he connected to that movie, and how he would love for me to be involved with this, and that was just like a pretty huge honor.
That's amazing. And you talk about the way that he sees the people who he works with and kind of peels back their layers. And with him as a character in your story, did you find that part of your job was to do that with him, I guess, in a way?
Yeah, it is. That was, anytime you're taking on a main character, it's, as a storyteller, you're trying to find the dirt or the core of who they are, or the the flaw or the weakness. And honestly, it's really hard to do that with Bryan Stevenson. You talk to anybody who's ever worked with him for a long time, and most of his employees have worked with him for 30 years, and he really is the person that he these quotes of his are his life, and his work is his life, and he's one of the most genuine, kind, strategic, smart people that I've ever met. But like the core of what we found is really something that I really connected to as a character, which is somebody who naively wants to change the world. A young person who is just jumping into this problem without fully understanding the complexities of it. And that definitely was the core of something that Bryan Stevenson related to as a young man. When he was jumping into this, he didn't quite know how big it was, but I think that fearlessness that comes with youth allowed him to just jump in, and he never stopped. And he's still doing the same work that he did back in the late 80s, early 90s, now with a much bigger team. And he really has transformed this nation in so many ways, while still there's so much more work to do.
Whenever there's I'm presented with a true story, a historical work, and particularly portraying somebody who's still alive, I find it completely terrifying because, as a filmmaker, a storyteller, it's like you're wanting to structure or change or work something the way that you want to work it for your storytelling, and striking that balance between being true and accurate and authentic, but also telling a story. I mean, did you find that a challenge with this, and how?
Yeah, it was hard. Andrew Lanham and I adapted the book together, and I mean, it's challenging because our subject, we forced ourselves to be very close to Bryan Stevenson throughout the entire process because we wanted it to be accurate. And but he's also a very smart storyteller. So, when it came to certain time shifts or moving something in a slightly different order than it actually happened, Bryan was very supportive and understanding of those things. But when it came to the accuracy of the characters and the scenes, he rightly so was extremely strict, and it was. But constraints, as a storyteller, constraints are always really empowering in a way. Otherwise, you can just go off into any direction. And I think it helped us to hone in on a very specific story that was able to, he was able to screen it to Walter McMillian's family, and they were, everybody saw themselves on the screen, which was kind of our hope.
It's incredible. One of the sequences that for me was just, one of the most moving and just artfully done. I was totally blown away by it. Was Herbert? Is that his name? Sorry. His death sequence was incredible, and partly because I want to hear kind of how you thought about structuring it and how you developed it from the beginning, but also part of what's so amazing about it is that it functions so much as like this turning point for the character, really important emotional turning point for Bryan, but also kind of propels the plot forward in a certain way because it does give him a new perspective that helps him break Walter's case a little bit. And I mean, is that something that was, clear to you from the beginning, the way that it would function dramatically, clear from the beginning, or is it something you discovered in the writing?
It was Herbert's execution, story-wise, it was something that early on we knew how powerful that was in the book. It was the first execution that Bryan witnessed, and what you saw is what he experienced, and it was extremely moving. And one of the things that actually wasn't in the book was a little detail that really hit me. I was interviewing Anthony Ray Hinton, who is played by O'Shea Jackson in the movie, and I was interviewing him. Andrew and I were interviewing him, and in the interview we were asking, because while he was there, he was on death row for 30 years, and while he was there, he experienced so many of his friends being executed, and we knew about the banging the cups on the bars, which Bryan talks about in the book, and I just assumed that it was a sign of protest, and so we asked him about that, and Anthony Ray Hinton said, "Oh, that was less about protest. It was more about us letting our boy know that we're with him. We wanted them to hear that they're not going through this alone." And when he told me that, I was like, "Oh man," because I didn't really fully realize the depth of the camaraderie and the friendship and the love between those guys, and so that little bit of information transformed that whole sequence, to me, made it bearable. It's not about watching somebody die, it's about watching the love between these people and how they're all affected by this. And that's also why we chose to play that song. The song that plays there is the song that Herbert Richardson chose to walk to his execution with, and we chose to play it all the way through till his death, because in our minds that's like the song that he was probably playing in his head throughout. It was a really difficult sequence, emotionally difficult for all of us to go through, because we had people on set who were very, very close to the actual man, and we also had a former executioner on set who had since kind of become an advocate against the death penalty, but he was there on set to walk us through every little detail of how they would do it, so that we could show how the straps were done and so we kind of mapped it all out before Rob Morgan even stepped into that execution chamber. Rob Morgan plays Herbert Richardson, and we had all of our guards kind of work through the whole routine. And so for the first time that Rob Morgan actually came into that chamber and saw the chair for the first time, we were rolling on him. So he experienced it all while we were shooting.
It's so effective. And like the moment that I realized what was happening with the music, basically, that they were making, and realizing that Herbert was going to be able to hear that, it was just like chills, you know? I mean, it really effectively kind of did exactly what you're talking about, which made the scene about so much more the camaraderie and the love than, I guess, about the pain of the death. Yeah. I'm like so curious and could keep asking you questions about the real story and all of that, but I also really want to get to kind of hear about how you approach working with actors. I mean, you clearly, from all your films, you work with incredible actors, but also get such amazing, you know, performances, transcendent performances, and that you must kind of create a certain space for them that really allows them to do their best work, and wondering how you approach that, kind of creating that space. And
I think, I mean, I just kind of guess whenever I talk about how I work with actors, because I don't know, like every actor is so different. And when I start like filing through every actor that I work with, my directing is different for every actor. And anytime I'm working with a new actor, I ask them what pisses them off about how other people have directed them, what gets under their skin, and then I'm like, don't do that. And then I ask them what's helpful to them. I know some actors don't like to be directed on the first take. They want to just come out and do something, and I'm totally game for that. Like, so some actors, I just don't say anything. We just start with whatever they're going to throw out there. And then we start saying, "Oh, that worked." Some actors like to do 3 in a row, and I'll just be like, "Okay, let's do 3 in a row," and then we do 3 in a row, and then we talk about it. But I actually, the first time I ever directed something, I was so afraid to work with a real actor, and it was because I looked at all the directors that actor had worked with before me, and I thought, they're going to know that I have no idea what I'm doing. And so I got this book that had all these directors talking about how they direct, and it had Scorsese and Spielberg and all the greats. And I read this book, and by the end of it, I was just so confused because every director did everything so differently. So now, I mean, the only thing I can, this is how I define directing actors, is like you will direct an actor the way that you talk to your friends or just normal people, and specifically the way that you deal with conflict. I mean, some people are really agitated and conflict comes up, and it's like other people speak to you speak differently to certain friends. You speak and you understand what their insecurities are, so you know, like, oh, don't go there, don't say that. And I feel like that typically is what directing is. And for me, the bottom line is like, everybody is scared. I think typically actors are rightly scared because their face is on a screen that's that big, and they don't know you, and you're the one choosing which take is going to go up there. And for me, it's, you want an actor who's going to trust you enough to give bad takes. Like they're going to trust you that you're not going to choose the thing that sucks. Because once they're there, then they're open and free enough to take risks and chances, and you only need one. And to me, like, some of the best actors give you like 9 shit takes and 1 amazing one. And it's just because they're just like, they just go. And so I don't know.
Have you ever worked with an actor who doesn't do that, who is very practiced and has a way that they're coming in to do a performance and knows what they want to do, and is kind of like, if you do 3 takes in a row, it's going to be very close to the same 3 times, and then you want to shake it up? Or have you ever been in a situation where you need to push them to go up?
Yeah. I mean, typically, like, it feels like that on day 1, 2, 3 until you come up with what your language is, because there's always testing going on the first couple of days before an actor starts to trust you. And I mean, I've definitely had to. A lot of times it's day play actors, because I feel for them because they're coming into a situation and they don't have time to even like understand what to build rapport with me, but there's been scenes where we've had to just stop early for lunch, and then I've had to go and talk to them and try to figure out something to get them out of this rehearsed thing that they've been practicing over and over and over. But I don't know. I usually find with actors who have been doing this for a while that they love freedom when they can get it, and so they love to loosen up when they are being told that they can.
And how about when you're shooting a scene and it's not working and you don't know exactly why? It's not specifically that an actor is not bringing a certain thing, or you know, for just some reason it's not gelling. How do you approach that? How do you reset or get out of that mode and figure out how to make it sing?
Oh, I don't know. Just shoot a lot and hope that there's something in there. Sometimes there's a moment when you're at the monitor or wherever you sit when you're directing, and a scene isn't really like jiving, and your heart starts thumping, and you're like, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? I don't even know what to, and sometimes it's really hard to put your finger on it. I do think part of your job as a director is just to shake things up, and you don't have to know the right thing to say sometimes, but if something's not working, you could I don't know, you could take off your clothes and run around, and that would shake things up. It would just like create like I would not recommend doing that. But
have you ever tried?
I wouldn't. That's not my style. But there's no. I mean, actors are constantly being affected by whatever is happening in the room. So sometimes I like let's just do 3 in a row, and I like okay, just do something completely different. And together we're just kind of searching. We're recording it all, but together we're just searching for something. And I think if your actors trust you in that, then it kind of feels like play. And they'll try something that doesn't quite work, but then if you do 3 in a row, sometimes there's like a couple new things come out that you can talk about. Oh, that felt good. Oh, maybe we don't need this line. This line is the thing that's screwing with us. You can either just lose it or change it. Yeah, I don't know.
And you've worked with like a bunch of the same key crew on several of your movies, right? I mean, your DP has been the same, at least for Short Term 12, Glass Castle, this one. And do you find that really important to you, having that kind of the people who you've, I guess, grown up learning how to make movies with, in a way, to have them there on set with you?
Yeah. I mean, I've worked with the same people since, Brett Pollack, my DP, shot my thesis film, my short film, out at in film school, and we've done everything together. My same composer, editor. My sister did has been doing costumes for me since the beginning. I mean, film sets can just make you kind of crazy sometimes. They get so intense, and it's really. I grew up on an island in the middle of the Pacific, and I have a low threshold for stress, and so it's helpful to surround myself with people who ground me and remind me of the very real fact that we are only playing make-believe, as intense as it feels, and it's nice to have people that around me that help create that environment on set, that don't take a stressful situation and amplify it by 10, because it's usually not necessary. That people that help remind everybody to like laugh through our stress, which I think is very important and hard for me to do. So I surround myself with people who help with that. They also all happen to be very good at what they do. So that's also why I am always wanting to work with them.
And how did you collaborate with Brett on this film to come up with kind of your visual language that you were going to be using? Did you have any specific references or reference points?
Brett and I are constantly just feeling the vibe of the actors, and trying to come up with a way to shoot a scene based on what we feel like they would benefit them in that scene. And for specifically this movie, that was always the first conversation, which, for the three, when you see those three guys in their cell rooms talking to each other, we knew we wanted that to be very loose, and we wanted them to be able to improvise or go off script if they wanted to. So we had 3 cameras set up on each of them in each of their cells, and we ran them simultaneously so that they could have all those conversations just like they would if they were in cell on death row. And that was, it was one of the more interesting things that I learned from Anthony Ray Hinton, was that he would often have friendships with people that he'd never seen their faces, but he knew their voices because they would be shouting from one cell down to the others. And it was cool to see. We just set up those 3. They knew what the lines were, and they would just they would do the scene, then they would start improvising, and they'd go off for like 2-3 minutes on just random tangents, and then one of them would like start the scene again, and they'd just do it again. And I just watched. It was really cool to see.
It's amazing. The camera often feels like very close to your actors.
Yeah.
Which is, I think part of what makes the filmmaking so powerful. How important were your camera operators just in terms of that, intimacy with the actors? They're the people who are closest to them. And
yeah, our camera operators were both very good at the technical aspects of it, but they were also, you have to have a camera operator that doesn't weird out your actors. Like, you have to have a camera operator who is sensitive and who your actors feel okay with being vulnerable with when they're sometimes like a couple inches from their face. For this, Bryan Stevenson's book starts off in one of the first chapters. He says that it's something his grandma tells him, that you can't understand the most important things in life unless you allow yourself to get very close to it. And that was something that Brett and I talked about from the very beginning, was just creating an aesthetic that allowed audiences to get closer and closer to these subjects, to where in these certain intimate moments, like whether that's the moment of Herbert Richardson just before he passes, or the moment that Walter McMillian is trying to talk Herbert down from a panic attack, that we would take the audience literally as close as we possibly could to those faces, because that's something that I think Bryan hopes that this movie can do, along with his book, is allow people to get closer to a subject that we've all heard about and we've all read about, and we know the statistics, but we hope this movie allows you to get close to it in a different way through these characters who I think are very easy to relate to, and to see that they could be one of us.
Thank you. I think that's a really nice place to end it. And, thanks so much for the film, Destin. And thank you guys for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for listening to another DGA Q&A. If you'd like to hear more, you can find past episodes of The Director's Cut wherever you listen to podcasts. Stay tuned for more great Q&As with directors Matthew Diop and Pedro Almodovar, and be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow cinephiles find the show. Thanks again for listening, and have a great week. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.